The following story is also available as a read-only version. Check the link in the description if you're interested. Modester Hall loved crowded places. He just paid the parking fee for his ship at one of Salandrel Station's less reputable but more discreet ether docks, and was strolling down the quay. He was a human of average height and lean build, with kidney-colored skin and a friendly, diamond-shaped face. His eyes were a pale violet, and his black hair was shaved so as to frame various ports and jacks on the right side of his cranium. Not many people down here had those, and some that did have implants did their best to hide them. Sailors of the Etherways usually preferred inculcations over implants, allowing them to communicate with mycelial networks instead of electrical ones. Moda had both. His comlink had already attuned to the standard Commonwealth protocols, and his augmented reality was being bombarded with virtual holograms trying to sell him things, or guiding the way to this or that establishment. Virtual ghosts wandered through the crowd, ignoring the physical matter of pedestrians and their vehicles or beasts of burden. They did step around Commonwealth security robots, though. Those had an impassable presence both in the physical and the virtual world. These were the standard civil security models, bipedal, reminiscent of orcs in frames and elves in visage. Their weapons were hidden behind retractable plates barely detectable in their metallic carapace. The Commonwealth of Arundissa was terrified of showing favoritism toward any of the 14 great forms, not to mention the countless species existing in between or outside of that system of classification. Thus, the vast majority of Commonwealth operations were carried out by robots, sometimes under the control of a small team of sapient operators and supervisors. Modar took in the emotional vibrations all around him, carried by the mycelium. It was a hustle and bustle, broken up by the occasional dimness or excitement of individuals who had not learned how to cease transmitting over the mycelium at all times, or who did not want to. Memories filled the air, just close enough for Modar to feel their presence, but always just too distant, too hazy for him to actually immerse himself in them. A child approached, or it might have been a hairless halfling. It was wearing dirty rags that might at one point have been colourful, and there were scars from the arms to the neck. Only the innocent face was untouched. Moda could feel the child's hunger, and detected the beggar's shame underneath it. He was good at discerning grifters from those in need. Nobody should have to debase themselves like this. "Here, take these," he said as he handed the child some credits. He pointed down the docks. "Go to my ship. It's brown like bronze, very speedy looking. Tell my cousin Dedak that Modar sent you. He's supposed to give you a warm meal." The child nodded, whispered a thank you, and disappeared into the crowd. High above, emerging near a glowing orb floating over the sizzling, ether-infused water of the lake, a vaguely draconic snake coiled into existence, pirouetting and dancing in impossible shapes. Instead of the simple, multichromatic holograms of augmented reality, this manifestation had weak contours, and the details of its appearance seemed to shift the more Modar tried to concentrate on them. It was a spirit residing in the mycelium. These beings actually becoming perceptible to those with the right inculcations was a rare event indeed. Presumably, though, on a place like Salandrel Station, where tens of millions of souls cohabited with such a powerful and complex mycelial cluster, an apparition like this must happen somewhere at least once per day. The snake disappeared into the ceiling above, from which colonies of buildings hung like stalactites. If Modester Hall wanted to get rid of the wares he had brought to the station, he would have to go even beyond them, to where the Spacers spent most of their time. After all, facilitating commerce between the trade routes of the Etherways and the Hyperlanes was what Salandrel Station had been built for. He called up an element in augmented reality, put out a request for a taxi, and headed for one of the many designated waiting areas. It wasn't a long wait until a thick-set dwarf descended from the air traffic above in a 3-seated Lev car. Moda's destination was located far above the lake, in one of the thousands of buildings protruding several kilometers from Salandral Station's main structure. The air was cooler and drier up here, the decor more rectilinear and clean. Flowing robes, travel coats, and feather dresses were replaced by business suits, pressure overalls, and military uniforms. Though there was still much greenery in the brightly illuminated corridors, the mycelium was weaker here. This was the domain of the Spacers, merchants who plied their trade by way of hyperlanes and warp tunnels. The Ascetic was a little off the beaten path, an anonymous establishment with a discreet and arcane placement of booths, lit dimly in primary colors. The smell of hookah smoke blended so many exotic flavors that it became grey and generic, and the clientele was similarly varied but indistinct. Large windows offered a view of countless spaceships hurrying about or parked outside the station. Moda recognized about a dozen or so bullet-shaped ultra-warpers in the distance. Though they averaged about 20 kilometers in length, Moda could obscure them with his thumb. "What will it be?" the satyr behind the bar asked. He had 6 short silvered horns and 4 small emerald eyes with no pupils. "Give me some golden smoke and a Praetorian summer ale," Moda responded, placing a few credits on the counter. This establishment was cash only. Grinning, the satyr handed him a capsule with a glowing golden liquid in it, and a pint of frothing white drink. Moda took them to one of the more isolated booths, and placed the capsule inside the hookah. After a few moments, he took a drag of metallic citrus taste into his mouth. It was barely perceptible, but the thick smoke he blew out had a slight golden hue to it. He took a sip from his Praetorian summer ale, enjoying the bitter but refreshing taste of hops and roseberries. It had been years since his last pint, but the stuff was hard to come by so far away from its world of origin. Moda dragged and blew out the golden smoke again, washing away the unpleasant taste with his ale, until eventually a vulpine anthropomorph entered the Ascetic. It was short, with fiery red fur and obvious cybernetics in its ears. It was rare to see an anthropomorph with a well-fitting spacesuit, and this fox wore it with even rarer pride and confidence. Moda was just as incapable of telling whether it was uplifted or naturally evolved as he was at telling whether it was a male or a female. The anthropomorph smelled the air and bared its teeth in what was likely meant to pass as a grin. It approached Moda's booth and sat down in front of him. "May I?" the vulpine asked. "Go ahead." Moda handed him one of the hookah's tubes. His new guest took a deep drag and blew out the smoke with relish. It was either unironically enjoying golden smoke or excellent at hiding its disgust. "So," the anthropomorph finally said, "what do you peddle, friend?" "Capers, of course," Moda responded. "Don't we all?" The vulpine laughed an odd cackle. "I may be interested in buying those capers off you, for resale, provided they are frozen. I don't trade in fresh product." "You work on an ultra-warper?" Moda asked. The anthropomorph nodded. "Life's too short for anything else." Moda frowned. Ultra-warpers could spend years traveling from system to system. It was hardly a job for someone looking to see much of the galaxy in a short time span. "My wares are indeed frozen, but I am not a bulk trader. I specialize in exotic, high-value capers. Truth be told, I don't deal in common capers at all. Not sure if an ultra-warper would be interested in that kind of product." "I can get common capers anywhere." The fox waved Moda's concern away. What you have is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm a true connoisseur of capers. The rarer the better. What do you have on offer? Well, I have recently come into possession of a rare kind of sylvan caper. They're quite powerful in taste, some would even say weaponized. Sylvan capers can come with curses, and they're elusive. I don't like curses, and I don't like goods that are prone to disappearing. The anthropomorph sounded wary. Modar shook his head. Not these. They are well materialized and guaranteed curse-free. That's why they're so expensive. How many of these sylvan capers do you have? The fox demanded. 3, Modar responded. The anthropomorph seemed to mull it over. I might be interested, but what else do you have on offer? I have 5 fatty capers at this time. They're nigh indestructible, and have the taste of at least a dozen common capers, Modar offered. No, I don't need that kind of caper right now. I have enough of them already, the Vulpine responded, vehemently shaking its head. Do you have something that is a little more stimulating, perhaps? Always. Currently I have 4 sublime capers with powerful aphrodisiac qualities. 3 are well known for their satisfying taste, and the 4th is entirely unspoiled. A greedy glint appeared in the fox's eyes. Those are my favorite kind. The farther away from the trade routes I go, the more valuable they become. Its jawbone jittered, and there was a blissful expression on the anthropomorph's face as it reminisced. I once sold a sublime caper to the king of a farming world, far from any hyperlanes, warp tunnels, and etherways. He filled half my ship with meat, maize, and bread of the highest quality. I sold it here, at this very station, and made a killing. You understand, then, that they will be quite expensive. I, too, wish to profit, after all, said Modar, and proceeded to drink some more of his ale. Of course, I pay well for good product. It's good business. The fox produced its comlink. We should meet again, somewhere else this time, so we can talk terms and plan the transaction. We certainly should, but I do have more on offer, Modar noted. The fox shook its head. I don't like carrying too many capers at once. I have the space, but people get suspicious. I will take your sylvan capers and your sublime capers. I'll throw in a fatty caper at half price, Modar offered with a grin. The fox clenched its jaw. All right, but only because I like you. It's a good place to do business from, Modar agreed. A few hours later, Modaster Hall returned to his ship. It wasn't as large or fast as some of the other vessels sailing the etherways, but it was sleek, safe, and inconspicuous. His cousin Dedak was lounging on the railing, smoking something that smelled sweet and sour. Crew still out? Modar asked. What did you expect? Dedak coughed. They won't be back for 3 days at least. We've been on the ways for months. They need some time to unwind. Modar climbed up the gangway to the deck. It was swaying gently. You should go and do some unwinding yourself. I made a good sail today. What do you think I'm doing? Dedak asked, holding up his pipe. He walked over to the hold and unlocked it, climbing down before Modar. The inside was dark and soundproofed. There were no windows, and the air circulation was separate from the rest of the vessel. Lined along the walls were 24 glass sarcophagi, connected by a series of tubes and vines. Glowing spores hovered inside them, dancing around the bodies of various sleeping humanoids. Modar pointed at 3 fairy warriors, their bodies a perverse amalgamate of insect and person. All 3 of them sold. He moved over to 4 sarcophagi containing elven girls, 3 of whom were older than Modar and Dedak put together, and one of which was still a child. Client wants all 4 of them, too. He even bought one of our big guys. Modar gestured over to the 5 much larger sarcophagi containing yellow-skinned ogres. I had to get rid of him at half price, so there is no profit in it for us, but they've been clogging up space for too long." "They seemed like such a bargain at the time," Dedak lamented. "How should we have known that nobody was buying ogre slaves anymore?" Modar shrugged. "I just want to make some of that money back, and also get new spores for the hypnostasis system. I don't want one of them waking up and wreaking havoc." "I'm with you there, but with what you sold today, it shouldn't be a problem to get new spores. I know someone just down the street from here. Very discreet seller, high-quality product," said Dedak. "What about the kid I sent you earlier?" Modar asked. "Did he even show?" "Gave him a bowl of stew and told him to walk," Dedak responded. "There's nothing special about him, just a homeless boy. Besides, he's human. We don't trade in humans." Common capers. Modar had never seen anything wrong with them, but then him and Dedak had differing sensibilities. But business with family required compromise, especially if one traded in capers. If you liked this story and would like to hear more, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. A new short story is uploaded every Wednesday, and there will occasionally be another one in between if I find the time. Thank you very much for listening and have a great day.